Alrighty. Well, this is going to be an interesting video. The first one I've shot in a very, very long time. And just to remind everybody, I am a type 1 diabetic, and I've been a diabetic for about 33 years right now. And over the last at least 30 plus days, as you can see by my graph, I have been struggling with hepatic gluconeogenesis or hepatic glycogenolysis, especially at night. So what that is pretty much as soon as I go to sleep, my liver starts pumping out massive amounts of glucose. Now, this is pretty much normal in someone who isn't a diabetic, but they have a counter-regulatory mechanisms, which is insulin. And what that does is that suppresses the hepatic gluconeogenesis or glycogenolysis at night, and their blood sugars remain stable overnight. There are also some other hormonal regulatory mechanisms such as growth hormone and cortisol and leptin as well. All of these do play a role too in the liver's output. This is also commonly referred to as the dawn phenomenon. Now, over the last, 30 years as I've been a type 1 diabetic, I haven't really paid too much attention to a lot of these things until over the last 2 years when I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, and I overcame that and I adopted a carnivore diet. So I do not eat any carbohydrates at all, only when necessary, when I get hypoglycemic. Obviously, as a type 1 diabetic, you have to be able to manage that. And I only eat 2 meals a day, which consist of, protein and fats. And I'm on about a 60-40 split, right? About 65% protein and about 35-40% fat, from different varying sources. And I do not eat past 6:30 every night. So my eating window is usually from about 12 p.m. to about 6:30 every day. And I have done extended fasts as well. Following my CGM data, which we're kind of, staring at here at the screen, my stomach does empty usually around 9 p.m. at night, and it's usually pretty consistent because I only eat 2 meals a day, so I take some digestive support for that, as well as I take my big boluses of insulin. Now, due to some disruptive stomach emptying, I take only fast-acting Humalog insulin. I do not take the R insulin like Dr. Bernstein advocates, as well as other groups, because just for me and my digestive issues and when my stomach empties and when it decides to, the best way I can, respond is unfortunately just with taking big boluses of fast-acting insulin. However, over the past really 30 plus days, as you can see on my glucose graph here, so I have the average over the past 30 days, I've been struggling massively with sugar production from my liver at night. Now, I try and Google this just as everybody else does, and they come up with the same videos. However, I have never seen any diabetic post their graphs that actually shows their fluctuation blood sugars overnight. So this is what I'm going to do. So we're going to start with the average over the last 30 days, and over the course of the next, couple of posts and weeks, I'll start looking at these things on a daily basis. And what we're just going to take a look at here is my daily glucose. So what's happening is I'm going to sleep right around midnight here. And then I fall asleep, and instantly my blood sugar just skyrockets. My liver starts pumping out glucose due to the dawn effect, and it keeps rising and rising and rising and rising and rising and rising. Right? So then the average, right, was around 8.7. Now, this is just an average for the last 30 days, but it reaches peaks of up to 13, 14. Now, I usually get up a little after 6 o'clock in the morning, so this is like 6:30 a.m. I get up when it's peaked at the highest. I have to take a massive amount of fast-acting insulin, and then I pedal on the bicycle like crazy, and then it just plummets it down as fast as possible. And as you can see throughout the course of the remainder of the day, it is between 4 and 8. So those are the reference ranges that I put on my CGM, so I can try and keep my blood sugar within those ranges and take insulin as soon as I see peaks, or have a couple glucose tabs when I see lows. But the main trouble at night is this. So when it comes to injecting insulin, and I'm taking long-acting Tresiba insulin, some people, as I've read, split up their long dose. So Tresiba insulin actually does have like a little bit of a 3-hour peak to it. And I noticed when I split my doses, if I take Tresiba in the morning, I would get low blood sugar 3 hours later. So to try and combat this nighttime hepatic glucose output, I've been taking my Tresiba, all of it, spread apart in 3 different doses, as I'm taking a total of 30 units, at 9 o'clock at night. So I'm trying to time the peak of the fast-acting insulin to suppress all of this. And it's not working. And actually, through maybe another post, another video I'll put up, I'll show some videos of what it show some data of what it looks like when I am fasting. And it's much worse than this, unfortunately. So as I've said, this is an extremely troubling issue, especially when I track all my weight, all my food intake. I track blood ketone levels and as well as urinary ketone levels. And what I have noticed is there is a difference in urinary ketones, and when this nighttime hepatic glucose output spikes, it is putting me into diabetic ketoacidosis. And I am unfortunately just urinating out lean body tissue. And that is something I really, really do not enjoy doing. And it is very, very frustrating, especially when you try and take a very scientific and mathematical approach to managing type 1 diabetes. It should be easier. However, that is just not the case. And I know that there is a difference between diabetic ketoacidosis and what is called ketosis, because I do eat a carnivore diet and I do understand blood ketones and I do measure those as well. And there is a big difference to this as well, not to mention the way I feel. So I'm going to keep posting and making these videos and start breaking apart days and days and showing some of the results that I have found with trying to manage this nighttime hepatic glucose output, as I am a little bit ahead of it now. But this is something that a lot of diabetics experience, and everybody else who's making these posts on YouTube are just drawing on chalkboards. I'm going to actually show you real-time data about how much my blood sugar is increasing at night and some of the things I'm trying to do to mitigate this and bring this down. Because as you can see, my blood sugar is actually very good throughout the entire rest of the day, right? And my average, and I'm taking now a total of 30 units of fast-acting insulin, and my average glucose is 6.8. which is, by most medical standards, extremely well managed. But that's not the case, because what is going on at night, and as most diabetics know, hyperglycemia makes you and affects the way you feel, your energy levels and everything absolutely horrible. So even though we look at some of the standardized measures as my average glucose over the days and weeks as being good. The reality is it is not good, because my body is breaking down and breaking down and pumping out lean body tissue, which I've been measuring with urinary ketone strips and putting myself into diabetic ketoacidosis. So this needs to definitely stop, and hopefully I can provide some sort of insight and education on A, how to identify all these patterns, and B, what are some of the strategies I've used to be able to try and mitigate this and lower this. And the unfortunate thing with type 1 diabetes is that it is a complete and total experimentation on yourself. It is total trial and error the entire time. And you are your own guinea pig. And there is no better person that is going to help you figure out this problem than yourself. That is just the unfortunate reality of it. So like I said, this is the dawn effect, or what is referred to as the dawn effect, as I'm going to sleep and instantaneously my body is pumping out massive amounts of glucose. And the only way to get it down is to take a massive amount of fast-acting insulin as soon as I wake up, as hard as that is. And I do an intramuscular shot into my thigh, and I get on the bicycle and I pedal as hard as I can based off of how I feel to speed up the effect of the insulin, because intramuscular shots work faster. If you put them into the thigh and pedal on a bicycle, for instance, you're going to speed up the effect of that insulin instantaneously. What I have noticed that I will start to say right off the hop is that having all this high blood sugar at night due to this dawn effect that is occurring, and as the blood sugar is spiking up here, makes you more insulin resistant. So what that means is the amount of insulin I usually take to lower my blood sugar, let's say 2 or 3 millimoles, is not effective at this time because of how high the blood sugar spikes. So if my blood sugar goes from down here where it's about, 5.0. So I'm just going to do a quick calculation because I am up in Canada. So that would mean my blood sugar is 90 when I go to sleep. And up here it spikes up to between 11 and 13. So that means it goes up to about 220, 235. That is, almost 2.5 times the amount it was when I went to sleep. And that's with, again, taking long-acting Tresiba that has a peak 3 hours later at the same time when I go to sleep to try and mitigate this. All right. So that's just going to be a little bit of an introduction here. As you can see, over the last 30 days, we're going to start picking this apart. And I'm going to give you a lot of the things that have worked for me and that haven't worked for me, and that hopefully I can give you some data that shows this actually happens and that it is very destructive to diabetics, as it's putting me into diabetic ketoacidosis on a daily basis, because I was cycled in and out of it, and what we can do to try and mitigate that.